Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. My entitled mom was afraid of doctors and it almost cost me big time. After that, hippity hoppity, this is no longer your property. And after that, you need to check all of our food? Fine. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to cut in the drive-thru. But I'm hungry! So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. My entitled mom was afraid of doctors and it almost cost me big time. My mother, the entitled mom of our tale, grew up in a household that didn't believe in doctors or going to the hospital. This translated to an irrational fear of hospitals for my entitled mom. At the time of this story, I was 14, in high school, and about to have a very bad day. I should start by saying that my entitled mom lives exactly 1 mile away from the closest emergency room. Also, my siblings and father were out of town for a competition that weekend. I didn't feel like going to another cheerleading competition, so I stayed home. I get home from school on a Friday around 4 p.m. and call entitled mom to tell her that I don't feel good and I think I need to see a doctor. Entitled mom says that she has a 1-hour workout with her personal trainer, PT, who happens to train the whole family for our sports teams. Entitled mom tells me that she will come home right after and take me to the pediatrician. 4:40 p.m. I call entitled mom saying that something is seriously wrong with me and I really think I need to go to the hospital. She tells me that personal trainer just had a cancellation and she's staying for another hour workout, then she will take me to the doctor. 5:10 p.m. I call my entitled mom and beg her to come home because I'm in a lot of pain and I feel terrible. She gives the phone over to personal trainer who says, I kid you not, it sounds like a muscle cramp from our workout last week. You'll be fine, buddy. She says she will call our friendly neighbor across the street to check on me. 10 minutes later, I hear friendly neighbor walk in through the door and come to my room to check me out. I'm on the floor because I fell after going to the bathroom and couldn't get up. She helps me into bed and immediately calls entitled mom. Conversation goes something like this. Friendly neighbor. Hey, entitled mom, I think you need to get here ASAP. Your son is white as a sheet and sweating bullets. Also, he's in so much pain he can barely move. Entitled mom. Oh, I'm sure he's fine. Probably just overreacting from a muscle cramp like personal trainer says. Neighbor. This isn't just a muscle cramp. He needs to see a doctor. I can put him in my car and meet you at the hospital ER that's just 1 mile away. Entitled mom. No need for that. I'll finish up here and head home to take him to the doctor. Click. 5:45 p.m. Friendly neighbor calls entitled mom again, and entitled mom says she's changing and will be home in 10 minutes. The gym is pretty close. 6:20 p.m. Entitled mom finally gets home. Friendly neighbor tells her what I've been going through and says I need to go to the ER. Entitled mom says she's taking me to see our pediatrician. Entitled mom does take me to our pediatrician, who also runs a pediatric ER. The problem is that the doctor's office is 25 minutes drive away with zero traffic, and we are in a rush hour. 7:15ish p.m. We get to the pediatric ER and they immediately take me into the back to see what's wrong. Turns out I have an acute appendicitis and it's close to bursting, so they need to send me over to the hospital that's 1 mile from my house to get it removed. The entire time, my entitled mom is murmuring about needing to get ready for a trial the next day. She's a divorce lawyer, and how I'll probably be fine and just need to sleep it off. Then there comes a moment when entitled mom is out of the room, but I have a doctor and a nurse in the room alone with me. I tell them the whole story about how I've been trying to get her to take me to the ER since 4, how we lived only a mile away from the hospital they wanted to send me to, but my entitled mom decided to go here because she hates big hospitals. The doctor didn't really believe me until I told him to MapQuest. Old school, I know. My address relative to the hospital. I managed to convince them to call for an ambulance to transport me to the hospital to make sure I got there. After my surgery, the nurse told me that the appendix burst as they began the surgery, so they had to be quick. To this day, I still tease personal trainer every time I see him by grabbing my side and saying I think I have a muscle cramp. I've never heard him use those words together since. Have you ever had to go to an ER for anything? If so, what was it? Please let us know. Hippity hoppity, this is no longer your property. After graduating college, my girlfriend and I moved to a new state where she was accepted into an engineering program. We found a lovely garden apartment-style complex that advertised 100 megabytes per second internet speed, included in the price among a few other amenities. When we met the property manager, he seemed strict but well-mannered, nothing out of the ordinary, until we signed the lease. The first problem. Suddenly, walking into his office was not allowed without an appointment. I had come by to ask a question, saw him browsing social media, and figured he was as available as he made himself to us when we first came by, unannounced to view a model apartment. Nope, he refused to answer my question and asked me to make an appointment via email. The second problem. The terms of our lease included an attachment to complete within 48 hours of accepting the keys that details all discrepancies within the unit. We submitted the attachment via email around the 40th hour. The property manager responded that the terms recently changed from 48 to 24 hours, and since we had passed 24 hours, we would be held liable for all found damages. When citing our copy of the lease, which explicitly stated 48 hours, he informs us that we signed an outdated copy and would need to make an appointment to come by the office and sign a new lease. The third problem. The internet speed was not 100 megabytes per second as advertised. It was less than 15 off-peak and about 5 on-peak. We again contacted the property manager to complain, but we were referred to make an appointment. The fourth problem. We made an appointment to address the previous 3 problems. During this meeting, and after I finished voicing our issues, the property manager leans forward and says, "There are other communities in this neighborhood that may be more accepting of people like you and your girlfriend. You're welcome to break the lease and leave." People like you and your girlfriend. I had thought he was referencing our no-nonsense response to his nonsense, daily communication, scheduling multiple meetings to address these issues, etc. But my girlfriend believed he was speaking towards colors. Her, a black woman, and myself, a white man. My girlfriend jokingly told me to check my privilege before getting serious and explaining to me that we were experiencing discrimination at the very least. The solution. I did some research and discovered the property manager worked for a larger organization that owns several complexes throughout the country. I found their director of human resources on LinkedIn and made a connection. I then emailed her copies of all email correspondence, screenshots of the lease, pictures of the internet speed flags advertised by the road, and more screenshots of online speed tests. We further noted his comment and the implications behind it. The human resources director replied within a few hours and promised us she would look into the issue. About 2 days later, the property manager called and asked us to come by his office at our convenience. We showed up near the end of the day and sat down across from him. He then proceeded to ask us if we would be willing to write a letter stating we accepted his apology, despite not yet offering said apology, and in return he would credit us a month's rent, accept our damages attachment, and promise to have the ISP on site within a week to assess the internet issues. We declined. He got personal with us and revealed his job may be at stake and asked us to reconsider. My girlfriend leaned forward a bit and said, "There are other communities in this neighborhood that may be more accepting of people like you. You're welcome to leave." The property manager was replaced in a week with a super sweet older lady who not only gave us all of the things the original property manager had promised, the 1-month rent credit, accepting the damages attachment, and then further scheduling maintenance to fix said damages, having the ISP assess and upgrade the internet to promised speeds, but she also made it clear that her office was always open for anything we may need. I looked up the old property manager about a few months later on LinkedIn, still unemployed. What would you have done in this situation? Would you have accepted the property manager's apology or not? Please let us know. Of course not. Sounds like he got what he deserved. Am I the jerk for being grossed out by my girlfriend rarely washing her hair and not brushing it? Since quarantine started, my girlfriend has gotten very into a new hair care routine. I guess one of her friends was trying it and she wanted to see if it would work for her hair. It's wavy and curly. Since starting it, her hair is definitely way more curly and it does look nice. However, as we were talking about it, she mentioned that she only washes her hair every 3 to 4 days. And I tried not to say anything, but I definitely had a shocked look on my face. So when she asked what was wrong, I said I thought that was unhygienic. She said it's healthier for it and said it's not a big deal because it's not like her hair smells or anything. Which of course, it's not going to smell bad when you're loading it up with a bunch of hair products every day. On top of this, I realized yesterday she didn't even brush her hair anymore. She was cooking and I came up and rubbed her back a bit and my fingers ran through her hair a bit. She said, "Ow," and pulled back a bit and asked if I'd please be careful since it hurts when her hair is tugged on like that. I said, sure, fine, don't want to cause her pain, but I was also like, "What do you do when you need to brush it then?" And she said she never brushes it, only uses a comb in the shower when her hair is wet, meaning she only ever combs through it every 3 to 4 days. I was like, "What? Are you trying to grow dreads?" To which she just said, "That wouldn't ever happen. I'm white." Which wasn't even my point, but whatever. She was like, "What is wrong?" And I said I just found it gross that she doesn't take basic care of her hair. She just laughed and said I don't know what I'm talking about, so don't be a jerk about it. Am I the jerk? I don't think it's that ridiculous to be put off by someone not practicing regular hygiene, but she is very proud of her hair lately. Edit. Thank you for your comments, everyone. I accept that I'm the jerk here. I looked up the curly girl method some of you posted about and apologized to my girlfriend. She said that tomorrow, after she washes her hair, I can watch her put the products in and see specifically how she maintains the hair. So I'm going to do that. All is well here again. Edit 2. Wow, this blew up. Again, I fully accept I was being the jerk, and I completely understand why. To give some more context, with the permission of my girlfriend also lives with bipolar type 2, and in the past, changes in hygiene have always been an indicator of a mood swing. Obviously, that wasn't the case this time around, but after talking it through, I realized that this past experience is part of what informed my own concern. Obviously, that doesn't excuse my judginess, but I was just glad that after talking it through, I was able to figure out for myself what was actually poking at me. Not the hair, but rather me worrying that something else was going on. I'm really glad I know about the CGM now, and I'm actually really excited for my girlfriend to show me her routine tomorrow. Also, my girlfriend is having a fun time reading through the comments, and we're both laughing about how much of a jerk I was about this. She also now wants to make a Reddit account to join the Curly Girl subreddit, so thank you to everyone who suggested that. Well, what do you think? Was OP a jerk or not? Please let us know. Maybe he's bald and he's just jealous of her. You need to check all of our food? Fine. So this happened like 7 or 8 years ago when I was jobbing at a driving service while I was a student. The driving service was one for people with disabilities that could not drive or walk on their own. Our main office was in the building of a housing/working facility for disabled people. The two companies, our driver's service and the housing facility, were loosely connected as they were both financed by the same organization. However, management-wise, they were clearly separated. We were about 15 drivers at this location, and we shared our lunch/social room with about 10 caretakers. Since our schedules were horribly organized, the drivers often had idle time, so the social room was where everyone hung out waiting for work. One day, my boss, let's call him Tom, brought cake to work because he turned 60. The cake was enormous, like a wedding cake could hide behind it twice. I can only imagine how expensive it must have been. At 9, every driver had eaten some pieces and there were still like 80% left, so Tom told the caretakers they should feel free to take some. Then Karen happened. She was something like the security inspector of the facility, so she had authority over the caretakers but no dealings with the driving service. Her job was to watch for potential hazards, organize the caretaker's schedule, and generally having an eye on everything happening. When she heard there was cake, she was furious. She and Tom couldn't stand each other, so she was always trying to ruin his day. In this particular instance, she claimed the cake was a health hazard as it contained cream, and she could not verify whether the cooling chain was broken during transport, so she threw it all away. Roughly 400 euros worth of food just thrown away. Needless to say, Tom was less than amused. He went extremely mad. He was usually a very calm and gentle man, and this was the only time that I had heard him shouting at someone. Still, there was nothing he could do. Karen could basically declare anything a hazard and take action how she saw fit, and her higher-ups didn't really care. To make matters worse, she doubled down and demanded that any food that was brought into the social room had to be inspected by her first. Cue malicious compliance. Obviously, all the drivers were mad at Karen for upsetting Tom and for throwing away a perfectly fine cake. So the next day, first thing in the morning, 15 drivers went to her office, everyone with his lunch demanding she inspect it. It took her roughly 10 minutes looking at sandwiches and answering questions whether mayonnaise was too hazardous to be brought in. This went on for the whole week. Each day, our questions about hazardous food becoming more and more dumb. On Friday, it took her more than 2 hours to inspect our lunches as we would collectively steal her time. Afternoon, she said she got the message and that sandwiches got a general okay and not to bother her with it anymore. Fine. The following week, we went out of our way to eat anything but sandwiches. Salads, cake, pretzels, normal lunch stuff. Every day there was a line in front of her office having their lunch checked, asking stupid questions, whether this food was or was not too dangerous to enter the social room. Karen was losing her patience, becoming increasingly aggressive towards us, but still refused to apologize to Tom. Then at the end of week 2 of food checking, Tom brought a bucket for lunch. When he entered Karen's office to have his lunch checked, like he did every day, and opened the lid of his lunch pot, the smell hit everyone in the vicinity like a brick to the face. Apparently, he had made some unholy mix of garlic, cream, pickles, and herring, which he called fish soup. It looked like what happens if you leave something dead in the sun for too long, all brownish and sluggy with some green specks in it, and reeked twice as bad as it looked. Karen looked as if she would puke any moment, commanding him to remove this monstrosity from her office. Tom asked if she didn't want to check it, since he could imagine the cooling chain could have been broken during transport or sometime in the last 2 weeks. The lot of us drivers laughed so hard. I swear, some nearly choked from laughter. This was roughly the time that Karen had to admit defeat. Food checking stopped immediately, and the following week, Tom brought another cake. Speaking of cake, what's your favorite flavor of cake? Please let us know. I could go for some carrot cake right now. Am I the jerk for calling my brother-in-law an idiot after he got himself fired? My brother-in-law recently got fired from his job as a high school physical education teacher for posts he made on social media. He has been warned by the school in the past that some students and parents have complained about some of the things he posts on social media, so this wasn't a one strike and you're out thing. I won't say exactly what he was posting about, but he has a habit of posting things from questionable sources. Because the school he worked for was doing mostly distance learning, his phys ed class basically became an online physical health class. During one of his classes, a student of his was acting up and brother-in-law tried to keep him in line. An argument started, and the kid ended up bringing up brother-in-law's Facebook page on his phone and started reading off posts to the whole class, and basically chaos ensued as the whole class erupted into a Zoom meeting melee. Of course, the school administration got involved, and brother-in-law ended up being let go. He's currently trying to challenge the firing through his union, but they apparently aren't being as helpful as he would like. Brother-in-law and his wife were over at my house the other weekend, so our kids could get together, and I asked him how he was doing. He started going off about how people are too sensitive and can't handle anyone with disagreeing opinions. He then said that the school had infringed on his freedom of speech, and he was thinking about suing them. I stopped him and told him that's not how freedom of speech works, since the school isn't the government trying to censor him. He said he should be free to say whatever he wants. I told him that he's right. He can say whatever he wants, but that doesn't mean he's free from consequences when he says stupid things. I asked him why he didn't just set his social media to private after the school warned him about it previously. He said he didn't think he needed to do that because nothing he was posting was false or offensive, and it was just another way for the school to try and censor him. I dropped it after that and went to play with the kids. But an hour or so later, he brought it up again and asked if I agreed with him that he was in the right. I asked him if he wanted me to be honest with him, and he said yes. So I told him I think he's an idiot and that he had been warned and didn't take any steps to prevent it from getting worse. He got mad and said he always knew I was one of those types and that I was part of the reason our country's freedoms are being taken away from us. I told him none of his freedoms are being taken away, but that we should just drop it for now. He stewed silently for the rest of their visit, and after they left, my wife asked me what happened since she didn't hear our conversation. I told her what we talked about, and she said it was kind of a jerk move on my end because of how fresh everything is for them. Well, who do you agree with? OP or his brother? Please let us know. That's why you can't get too woke. It usually doesn't turn out well. No microwaves allowed, you say? Another post reminded me of this. This story is most of 2 decades old, so details are not precise. When I was in college, as many people do, I lived in a dorm. Now, my college had 3 different groups of dorms. One that was in the main set of buildings that was mostly seniors, one that was mostly sophomores and juniors, and one that was almost all freshmen. The freshman dorm area had beds that were fixed to the walls, desks fixed to the walls, and built-in bookcases. It also had one common room for about 150 students, paired 2 to a room, and only 1 microwave in the common room. We weren't, ostensibly, allowed microwaves in the rooms. It makes sense. There were false fire alarms frequently from burnt popcorn in the lounge area. I can only imagine what horrors a bunch of 18-year-olds would concoct in their rooms if they were blithely allowed microwaves. Most people just went along with it while grumbling. But oh no, not me. I was complaining one day about the rule and how those of us who weren't idiots could handle a simple microwave. The RA overheard, laughed, and said I was welcome to try and find a way around it, but she had never found one. Being the nerd I am, though, I went and read the handbook in detail. On page 59 it said, no microwaves, but literally page 60 it said, any appliance under 1000 watts is allowed. So I found a microwave that was under that. Pathetic little thing at 500 watts, granted, in a Walmart ad. Took the ad and handbook to her boss, the residence life director. To her chagrin, she had to admit that any appliance under 1000 watts was allowed, and the handbook did say any appliance after all. She agreed to let me have my microwave as long as I didn't let the rest of the students in on this little trick. I agreed. You are fine, go back to class. I was 14, maybe 2 months into high school and in gym class. Teacher had us doing an exercise where you run forward and then backwards and then forward and then backwards, when I tripped running backwards and threw my hands back to catch myself. Since we were doing this exercise on the rubber cement track, I feel instant pain and I let out a cry. Teacher, without looking, says to go to the nurse while I sobbed in pain. I walk, by myself, up to the school doors and try to open the door, and I can't even move my fingers. Since I was sent back by myself, I sit on the ground and sob some more. A FedEx driver pulls up, sees me, asks what's wrong, and instantly goes into panic mode. He opened every door from the front door to the nurse. He explains how he found me, and she asks what happened. After explaining, she briefly looks at me and says, "The bell is about to ring. You're fine. Go back to class." When I asked her to just call my mom, she said no. She opens the door after me faking about not being able to move my fingers, and I make my way back to gym. I decided, even though I had a phone and could have asked someone to call my mom, that if I was fine, I would go back to class. I managed to convince a friend of my cousin's to take my binder and books to my next class, where I couldn't take notes or participate because I was getting dizzy from pain and wanted to puke. Had one of my friends take my books from that class to the next one, my second to last class of the day, and my cousin is in there. She sees me silently sobbing, trying to pay attention, and asks what happened, and once I explained, she called my mom in the middle of class. Not even 15 minutes later, my name is called from the speaker to go to the nurse. My cousin takes my stuff and puts it in my locker. Once I get to my mom, she explodes when she sees my wrists. Yes, you read that right. My wrists are twice the size and purple. She's screaming, asking why she wasn't called and why I went back to class. I turned to the nurse and said, "She told me there was nothing wrong and that she wouldn't call you and to go back to class." My mom lost it. She screamed at the nurse, who only said, "I don't have x-ray vision. How would I have known?" Screamed at the principal and took me to an emergency doctor appointment. Family doctor did x-rays and said I would have to go to the specialist in the morning because it was so swollen it looked like multiple fractures in both wrists, so he could not cast them. I had to endure another ride home and all night with Tylenol as my only pain meds and bags of veggies on my wrists throughout the night. Go to the specialist who looked at both wrists, took more x-rays, and came in asking what color I wanted my casts, since both wrists were broken and along the growth plate, so maybe permanent weakness and or pain for the rest of my life. Mother raised heck, sued the school. They refused to pay any expenses and said to sue them, demanded the nurse be fired. She was, and when the school was going to make me retake gym the next year and fail this year, she said no way was I being punished for their ineptitude. So that's the story of how I owned my school because of a stupid nurse and the refusal to call my mother. Just another customer who refuses to take no for an answer. I had the pleasure of fielding a phone call from a customer who refused to understand that what he was asking for simply wasn't possible. Customer: "Hi, I was in your store yesterday and saw this hat I liked, but you didn't have it in black. I was wondering if you could order it into the store so I could buy it." Me: "Let me check our inventory system right now. If we have it in one of our distribution centers or another store, we could absolutely place an order for you and have you pick it up at our store." I checked and we didn't carry the hat in black at all. To be clear, it wasn't that it was sold out or currently unavailable or anything like that. We just didn't carry that product in black. Never had and had no plans to do so. Me: "Hi there. I just checked and it looks like we don't carry that style in black. So unfortunately, I can't order it into the store for you." Him: "Really? But black is such a popular color. Why don't you have it in black?" Me: "I agree, it is a very popular color, but we just don't sell that style in black at all. Very sorry about that. Him. But the company that makes the hat sells it in black on their website. Me. I understand. We don't sell that hat in black, but if you want to, you could buy it from that company directly. Him. Your store had a better price for it. I'd really prefer to buy it from you if you could order it in. So not only does he want us to order this item in for him and him alone, he also wants us to sell it to him at a discounted price. Me. Right. The thing is, if we as a store were out of stock, but we carried it as a chain, I could order it in for you. But since we don't carry it at all, I have no way to order it for you. Him. You couldn't just order one in for me? I'm a loyal customer. I bought something the last time I was in. Me. Unfortunately, we just don't have that style in black in our system at all. There's no way to order it in, and in terms of distribution, we can't place orders for just one item. Here's where I started getting really frustrated with his refusal to accept that what he was asking for just wasn't possible. Him. Well, what if you order a few in? Me. I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do for you. I don't control our distribution or what products we stock. Him. Well then, can I speak to your manager? I'm sure he'd be happy to order in a product for a loyal customer. At this point, I'm happy to have an out from this conversation, even if it means potentially annoying my manager with a frivolous phone call. Me. Sure thing. I'll put your call through to him. It'll just be a moment. Him. Actually, can you put me on hold and lay some groundwork with your manager? Let him know I'm a loyal customer. I just bought something recently. I really want to buy this hat through you. And then, when you have him on my side, then can you put the call through? Me. I'm going to connect you to my manager now. What I didn't tell him was this. I'm definitely going to lay some groundwork with my manager in terms of apologizing for sending him this call and letting him know how persistent and annoying you've been up until now. My manager took the call, came up a few minutes later and just said, "Don't worry about it. He understands he's not getting the hat through us." If I had to do over, I would have been more brief and just let him know it wasn't possible and then hung up on him. It's still crazy just how far people will push it to get things exactly how they want them. Entitled Dad takes my 3,000 euro guitar. March 2019. I used to play guitar for many years. I started when I was about 6 or 7 and had to quit after my 3rd year of university, since Italian law school is extremely hard. Now that I finally graduated, I decided to start playing again. When I quit, I sold or gave away many of my guitars, keeping just my first one as a memory of my granddad, who I lost 2 years ago. So, first things first, I looked for a good instrument. Since I couldn't find one, I wanted an 8-string guitar, since I usually play really heavy stuff. I ended up with a luthier custom-made beast. Since I also found a really well-paying job, I decided to treat myself, as I never had good instruments, and this is the very first one I've ever bought that cost more than $200 or $300. It was a dream come true. Fast forward a bit. January 2020. I was at this shop, which is also renowned for being really good with setups, and of course, I brought my guitar with me so that they could take a closer look and inspect it. I was at the shop's counter for maybe over an hour, since most of the employees are my friends, and we started talking about stuff like how we were doing, news, albums, etc. Also, it took them some time to give me an answer about my setup, since I had really specific requests. Introduce Poor Kid and Entitled Dad. While the kid started looking around with his eyes shining, his dad immediately started complaining about, "Where the heck is everyone here? I have a job, and I can't waste my time like this." I was minding my own business on my phone when I felt someone tapping at my back. It was Poor Kid. "Excuse me, sir. Can I look at your guitar?" I put away my phone and said, "Of course," and took a step back. He was amazed and started asking questions about it, like why does it have 8 strings? What do I play? What's my favorite band? Etc. He then thanks me and gets back to the guitars he was looking at. As the kid goes away, his father comes to me with an annoyed face. "Hey there, that's a nice guitar you have." "Thanks, sir. So, is your son buying his first one?" His son was probably about 10. "Yeah, but these ones cost too much, and I saw he liked yours. How much did you pay for it?" "Well, I won't be suggesting you to buy an instrument like this as his first one. This guitar is a custom handmade one. It was pretty expensive." "Like 400 euro? "No, Actually, I paid a bit more, like 3,000 euro. Don't lie. There is no way a piece of wood can cost that much money. I'll give you 90 for it. I'm sorry, what? You heard me. I said 90 euro for your guitar. I was shocked. I never had to face an entitled dad before, and I was literally speechless. Okay, I'll give you 100 euro, but nothing more than that. Sorry, but it's not for sale. And even if it was, I could never sell it for, what, 1/30th of its price? Now you're just being mean. It's for my kid. Can't you do something nice and sell it to him? No, this is my first good guitar, and there are literally hundreds of them here. I'm sure you can find something he likes that you can afford. But he likes yours. And as he said that, he started trying to reach for it. I blocked his arm without hurting him. My guitar has a really thin neck, and it can be damaged or even snapped if handled carelessly. What are you doing? Come on, be a grown man. If you bought it once, you can buy it another time. Absolutely no. Please, sir, stop harassing me or I'll call the owners. He burst into a laugh before starting screaming how I was supposed to give it to him, that he knew the owner of the shop, who was one of his closest friends, and that he would call the police because I assaulted him when I grabbed his arm. The poor kid came close to us, looking deluded at his father, saying that he was embarrassing him and stopped doing what he was trying to do, and that he always did that. The entitled dad looked at his son with anger and yelled to him, "Go away and look at those stupid guitars." By that time, the cashier and the owner were back, since they probably heard the commotion. Is there something wrong here? As I was saying no, the entitled father started ranting about me being mean to both him and his son, that I had assaulted him, and that now he demanded me give him my instrument. Otherwise, he would have to call the cops on both me and the owner. I was so confused that I couldn't even understand how furious I was at that point. The owner looked at him, and when entitled dad finally finished with his nonsense, turned to me. Was he really trying to take your instrument, OP? Well, yes, but I stopped him because I was worried he would have taken it from the neck, damaging it. Sir, we have cameras everywhere. I know OP, and he would never do such things. I ask you and your son to leave, or we'll have to call the police. You can't do that. I was assaulted. The owner clearly had enough of that, so he took out his phone and started dialing for help. The dad went to grab his kid and stormed out of the shop, yelling how incompetent the owner was, how I had been a horrible person, and many other funny things I can't report. I felt bad for his son though. He was really kind, and I saw how he would have liked a brand new guitar to start playing, so I run after them, and ignoring the father, I asked the kid if he wanted an instrument. He was crying, but as I asked him that, he gave me a smile as bright as the sun. He went back, spent a good hour while his dad was waiting by the entrance, trying different guitars, and he ended up choosing a Fender all-in-one pack, since he would have needed an amp as well. I understood that his father was not going to be able to afford it, and I decided to buy it for him myself. He was the happiest kid I've ever seen. He and his dad got out of the shop, and I was finally able to get all the details about the work I wanted to be done on my rig, paid my deposit, and of course, bought some picks. When I finally got out from the shop 10 minutes later, I noticed that the dad was waiting outside. His eyes were red, and he started apologizing for his behavior. He explained to me how he used to work for a construction company, but he eventually got fired as the company declared bankruptcy. My granddad runs his own construction company, so I knew the one he was talking about. Pretty nasty stuff. Manager caught stealing profits, unpaid shifts and work days, forced closure, no liquidation whatsoever. Judges even took some money from the workers to pay for the debts the managers made. There were no doubts why this man was having his way more than fair share of BS. He kept thanking me for what I had done, that he was feeling horrible, and how his son was absolutely loving his brand new instrument. The three of us went to a bar and had a coffee and chatted for a bit. At the end of the day, the entitled dad was really just a parent struggling to get by month to month. I know what it feels like. I've been through some stuff myself, and I know how you can end up being a total jerk when you see no way out of your situation. I'm glad that it all sorted itself out in the end. They were genuine and good people, just having a rough time, and I couldn't be happier knowing that maybe I bought the next Steve Vai's first guitar. Come watch this video next, you will love it. And huge shout out to Donna's YouTube Life, our newest official channel member. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Join as a channel member today, and we'll give you a special shout out on our next video. And to have us make any kind of video you'd like us to, just come visit us on Fiverr, link pinned in the comments below.